Alright, welcome to step 3. Step 3 in the instructions kind of works in a C shape, where you start up in the upper right corner, work your way over, down, and then, so I guess maybe more of an S shape. But anyways, that's the direction we're going. All my parts are cut out, cleaned up, ready to go. So I have been asked to try and keep everything within the view range of the camera, so I'm being a little more cognizant of that. So anyways, hope everybody's keeping safe and well. Up here where I'm at, we get the smoke from Canada coming through from the fires that are going on. That has been a challenge. Not every day you walk out and you feel like you're walking into a campfire just from the smell. But otherwise, doing all right. And the orientation on here, there is a small little knob. It can go on either side of this, so it's good to look at the picture. And looking at the picture, we can see that the bolts stick out on this side, so that's the side we want to put the round cap K21 on. So I've taken it, and there we go. And then add a little glue. Let that work in. And so we're left with this other side, and again, there's a little notch on here and a little tab on this side. Put a little glue down. Lock it in. And by keeping an idea on the orientation, saves us from headaches and tears later on. Oh, so many tears. So there's that. Next we're going to move on to adding the parts in here, and in this case they have these parts called tacks, and that can be found in the accessories packs. And the accessory pack with the tacks is located with a lot of other stuff. This is what happens when you don't prepare. So what's located inside is the vinyl and the thread and the wires and the springs and chain and copper, more springs, and the what they're calling tacks. So I'm going to take 2 of these tacks out, and what I do with something like this, just to ensure that I can get what I want, I just cut a little notch there in the top, just a tiny one. This is potentially a problem in that something could still be squeezed out, but I'm not manhandling these bags normally. They sit in the container, whether that's in the model box itself, or some people have a separate container for, you know, when they cut parts out, they can keep them off to the side. In this case, I'm going to just have it in the model box. I'm not doing it that much, but I'm having a little bit of a time getting this thing to come out this way without having everything come with it. And again, just showing you that every model has its challenges, right? Even if they're good. So those are the tacks, and in this case what I'm doing is putting it with the vinyl hose back in its bag. It's not sealed on the top at all, but now it's safely back in the model box inside the long green box that all this extra stuff is stored in. Now we have it. All that done, what I end up doing is watch your orientation. The 2 empty holes are on the top here. So the first thing I want to do is take parts J33 and attach them, and these get glued. And this will help me to start orienting things properly. So there's one, and there's two. Firmly place them on so that they're level, and just a little dab of glue on each side should help secure that. Decent. Now taking this and part J17, and I am making sure that the loop with the hole is oriented correctly. I place that in here without glue, and then take part E20, and there is a locating tab, and I put that through on the top. And it looks like it's going to take a little bit of maneuvering to get that to work, but there we go. So I've got that hooked up. And then this metal tab, both putting E20 and J17 and the tack in are supposed to be no cement. So this is meant to be free moving. And as you can see with what I'm doing, there is a little bit of a struggle here. You got to kind of figure it out. Why is it not going in? What's the story? While also avoiding the glue. There. So I've got all the parts in for the one side. Now I noticed that I missed cleaning up that little bit of flash, just a slight amount on the edge. So just clean that up a little bit. I feel better. I'm just going to square this up. Take a look and make sure, yeah, I didn't mess any of that up. Now I'm going to go with the other side, do the same thing. And again, looking at the orientation. Now, this is J18, but for whatever reason, it doesn't match the picture that's in here. In fact, even though it is the opposite. So, and that's because I had it turned around wrong. So, embarrassing as that may be, something to pay attention to. How you have all your parts oriented is going to make a difference when you try and put them together. So now that I have things oriented correctly, looking at my photo of the instructions, I have my piece going in correctly. I have my... So I have E19 going in correctly. I have J18 correct. Now, I'm going to say that it's possible that E19 and J18 could be glued because you want the steering mechanism to move the mount for the wheel once this is put together. Notice, and this is important, that this has the arm with a loop on it, this has an arm without a loop on it, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So we've done that. Now we move on to taking K20, and this shows that there should be a little notch or proud piece right there, but the instructions are incorrect in that circular part in the middle does not have a notch. It actually has a divot, and the interior of this has the notch. So that just fits right on there like so. Now this is supposed to be cemented. I'm just doing my fitting. What I'm finding is that pushing this plug through is what I want to do first. If Yeah, and it's supposed to fit through, but when looking at the part, you have what look like knuckles in there, so it might take a little bit of pushing to get that all the way through. There. And this is where having various tools can come in handy to try and figure out how to get the parts through. Here's the end of a paintbrush. So that is now pushed all the way through. And then this is supposed to go on like that with the flat surface facing out. So at this point in time, I think it's easiest to glue all these parts together and then glue it to the end of the created transaxle, or technically part J17 in this case. So I've glued the plug, or H7, in there. There's no positive locating mark on here, meaning there's no notch or anything, just gets glued on as it'll fit. And then I'm going to go back and add some glue on there just to give me a nice positive seat. While that's drying a little bit, I'm going to put this side together. Yeah, so it takes a little bit of work to get these parts through. It's not as simple as it would seem. Again, a little bit of glue around the bottom and around the circumference of that, flat side out. Like so. Add a little extra glue. And it's done. So making sure that I have the parts set up from the step before correctly, and making sure that I go properly. I see everything fits just fine. It looks really good for the transaxle in there, if that's what it is, or the axle, or whatever. I'm not going to pretend that I know the proper naming for it. I'm going to carefully try to avoid the hinging areas that I didn't glue before, and just try to get this flat surface here, and then positively press it in. And then just a little bit of glue on the outside to go in. Now on this side, I'm going to assume, dangerous, I'm going to assume it already fits. Put some glue there, find the notch, find the positive tab. Give it some press fitting. Check and make sure my pins and things are still working properly. Put a little glue in there, and we are at that step being done. Next, we go down and add the crossbar. Now, we need to orient this correctly, like so. I'm going to add H15 first, because that's most likely going to be a bit of a problem. I'm going to orient it the way it shows in the instructions, with the knuckles not just flat, but to the left and the right, rather than being on the top and the bottom, which is how it is. I don't know if that's going to have any effect later on, but that's how I'm going to do it for right now. And I even missed a tab, so I'll clean that up like so. Again, here's my parts. This time I'm going to check. Yep, that works great. Take that off. I'm going to put some glue here. I'm going to put some glue here. I'm going to check and see these knobs go in. So when I put it like that, with the parts up, I want the knobs going in, like so. So now I've got this together properly, nice and straight, everything's positioned, and the knobs or clamps or nuts or whatever are pointing towards the axle rather than away from it. Finally, coming down to this part, I'm going to take part K6 and glue it to part F49, like so. And then I'm going to look over and make sure that the holes match up. As you can see, they do. So when I put the pin in there, it'll fit without a problem. Now I'm doing this a little quick rather than waiting around because the glue is drying, and if I want to have a chance of being able to move this around to get it to fit even better, it's gonna have to be done quickly. I've got about, I figure, 5 minutes to work with. So I've got those glued on and lined up. So looking at this, I want to have it oriented in this direction. I've got the oil drain plugs on the bottom for sure. I've got the hinges or mechanical stuff up top. I'm going to take part E11 and making sure that I've got it right, the long axle or pin coming off that and the short pin coming up the top. I'm going to put this long axle in through the part of J11 or J17, and that's also then going to push through and hook up with the notch in K20. And I will show you after I've done this, hopefully without seeing. Right now it needs to be drilled out. That is not working. And rather than push it and maybe split the plastic, I would rather clean this out this way, see if that's enough. Because there's nothing worse than pushing a pin through and then you split the plastic and you get a nice little break in it. So there we go. It punched right through. Needs a little bit of adjustment. And this can be a little fiddly. There. So now what I've got is this part, it pushed through, and I felt that. And now I just need to make sure that it is also square to the top. So in this direction, I can see that it's pretty much level 90 degrees. It's through the holes where it needs to be. All those nice little positive feelers is what I'm going to call them. And what that means is there's lots of little things that are telling me, okay, this is where it's nice and set. So right in here in K20, it's set into there. It's through that hole. It's the direction that it needs to be. Now I'm going to go and push this, tilt this back so it's at an angle. Nothing's glued in yet. And I'm going to put this with the part on here and here. This is a little fiddly. So this part goes part goes like this. And I want you to see me kind of struggling with this so that you understand. Because this is supposed to sit at this kind of an angle. It's not supposed to be square after all, but I didn't know that before I put this piece on. And this is what I was worried about with that, what I was talking about before, is there is starting to be a little crack right there. So, what I'm doing is looking at the orientation of F48. This is how it's supposed to be, at kind of a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to put some glue right there and glue right here to positively set that piece in. And then I'm going to go, this already had some glue, but I'm going to put a little bit more glue in there, and then I'm going to put some glue in right where the pin goes through. And I want it to go in well, because this might grease things up just enough to where it's not pinning things. And now I'm just going through and looking this over and trying to get things square and oriented, making sure that, like I said, that F48 is where it belongs in its dimensions, and then checking to make sure that everything lines up. I'm going to put a little bit of glue here to reinforce that K6 to F48 glue point. I've got the pin in there for positive location, and I want to make sure that this stays well glued right there. So this is got nice glue in it. So when it's all said and done, you've got that kind of an angle right there with F48 on the arm, and you've got the pin going through. I hope this helps you out. That was fiddly. So on the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. Will this go through without me having to open up the hole? Let's find out. The answer seems to be yes. Yep, it went through. Now I want to positively feed that into, there we go. And there is no crack as of right now. It's just the cleanup spot is not as nice as it possibly could have been when I clean this up. Now, how much of this is actually going to show, I don't know. But since I'm seeing it right now and everybody's watching, might as well make it look nice. So I'm going to put just a little bit of glue right there to clean that seam area up. A little bit of glue here, glue that. Now, because I know where this goes, I'm going to put this on to start helping to positively set up F23. I'm going to put the notches of F23 where they belong and carefully thread that post in through the back, if I can, carefully. Start to get all this stuff properly, there we go, lined up. And then start to turn that in the proper direction. Now, for whatever reason, this side seats a little stranger. So if it looks or feels weird, I'm looking at it this way. This one's basically nice and straight. This one's a little off. And that is, I'm seeing if I can adjust it. It looks like there's a little bit of adjusting I can do. Pull that back, push that forward a little bit. That looks, in my eyes, a little bit better. Just in case it's important. Right now, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. Things are mobile. But put a little bit more glue in that K6F49 joint, which does have that pin in there now. Again, a little bit of glue on the pin through the parts in the back, making sure I get glue onto F49 so that it sits properly. Go back, adjust it as needed. Seems like with this, it's better if it doesn't sit as far back on that pin part, at least on this side. For whatever reason, it just doesn't want to move forward. There doesn't seem to be any sort of positive lock, but it doesn't want to twist for any reason. I'm not going to force it anymore. I just want you to see all the interesting trouble. So it only took about 27 minutes to build step 3 with all the little fiddly parts. I'm hoping that you, having watched me struggle a little bit with this and work around with it, will help you to be able to do it in 20 minutes or 15. So here's seeing you at step 4.